Good morning and welcome everybody to this morning's webinar, Total Business Transformation, the How-To Guide. In our previous webinar on digital transformation, we explored the good, the bad, and the potential ugliness of implementation. Today, we will provide you with a step-by-step guide on how to go about taking the first steps on your journey towards total business transformation. Please do interact. Please ask questions. We want your opinions and your feedback. We're all on this journey together. But before we embark on any journey that involves massive change, we need to take an honest look at our internal resources. And I'm not talking about your team's collective capabilities from an auditor's point of view. I mean, each individual looking at their own ability to see change as positive. I've been a social emotional learning specialist for around 9 years now. And in social emotional learning, we focus on 6 core competencies: self-awareness, self-regulation, social awareness, which is just knowing how your behavior impacts those around you, relationship skills, developing a growth mindset, and optimistic thinking, all of which can be developed and enhanced, and all of which are no longer considered soft skills, but critical business skills. Doubt is natural when we're embarking on a new journey, but doubt can be very corrosive. But you can proceed with confidence with the right guidance. And on that note, I'm going to hand you over to Dilly Naidu, CEO of Madala and Associates. Dilly is a multiple marathon runner. He's been on many journeys. And Dilly knows that in business, small steps can amount to big wins. Dilly has been a business consultant for decades and has the expertise to guide you on your journey. And Dilly understands how IT can play a supportive role to total business transformation. Dilly, over to you.
Thank you, Caroline, for those kind words. And may I also share my warm welcomes to all of you joining us on this webinar this morning. But before we get to the main topic of today, which is the launch of the step-by-step guide, I thought we should just step back a little bit and take note of some of the experiences of some of the digital transformation programs globally. And these are some of the highlights of those transformation programs. And hopefully you would not repeat these costly mistakes. Based on research globally on digital transformation programs, there's been a very high percentage, in excess of 70% of digital transformation failures. Now you can imagine the amount of time, effort, and cost to yourselves and the organization. So the purpose of our sessions that we are having is to minimize that and learn from the mistakes that already have been made. What are some of those mistakes? So we found that there's been a lack of executive sponsorship, leadership, commitment, and communication. In fact, I will actually go as bold as to say that the C-suite, and in particular the CEO, not only has to own the business transformation strategy, but also the business transformation strategy to support the changing business environment. There's also, as you know, in large organizations, you've developed over a number of years a silo mentality, and there's been a lack of cross-organization collaboration. And this has been to the detriment of the organization. There are silos and pockets of excellence, which we need to unpack. The other is, technology is moving at such a pace in every organization. There is so much technology, but the challenge is how to integrate these technologies together. In some cases, there has not been a defined budget, typically like you would do in a company at the end or the beginning of a year to have a budget. So budget has to be allocated for this digital transformation program. There's also been a lack of, understandably, internal knowledge of how to integrate the new technology with the existing processes and the employees themselves, which has been over a number of years. As we know, over the years in companies, there are tons and tons of data. So how do we start taking data, converting that to information, and allows us to make decisions based on the insights that we have from this data? Last but not least, there is a need for partnerships with experienced, what we call not consultants, but resultants. So we coined this term in 2003, resultants, which is an outcomes-based approach to a partnership with our clients. Now, Caroline touched a little bit on the people side. Although the business transformation, most people are fixated with the technology, the hardware and software, but ultimately it's all about the people. You can buy technology, but you cannot buy employee commitment and engagement. And some of the guidelines is to start doing not what's urgent, but what is important and what's necessary. And it's amazing what happens when you start looking at what's possible. And you've experienced this in life as well, that suddenly you are doing things that you perceive to be impossible. And we touched on data, and you need to start treating data as a real asset. In fact, my personal view is like you have brands today that has a value on it. Data should start having a value on it, and you start treating it on your asset register as real value, quantifiable value. And you need to communicate and automate across the entire business as well as your value chain, including your supply chain. So quite often in the manufacturing sector, as one example, there is this acronym called OEE, which stands for Overall Equipment Effectiveness. And the formula for that is R, which is the rate, multiplied by your yield, multiplied by your utilization, which gives you the percentage of utilization of your equipment. Now, we have also looked at this from a labor perspective, because most companies look at their labor from an hourly rate perspective. And we've coined the term OLE, which is available to multiplied by performance, multiplied by quality. And that can only be achieved through what my colleagues will talk around later on in terms of integrating the processes. So the theme we've selected for this series is the old proverb from the Chinese going thousands of years, that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Now, most of us have been using Google Maps, Waze, and other technologies to map out a journey for us to get from point A to B. Why should it be any different in your business and digital transformation journey? And it's very important that when you take that first step, it's actually in the right direction. So as part of the business and digital transformation strategy, your digital transformation is an intimidating process. Unlike a number of presentations I've attended from many vendors who, with respect, is incentivized by selling their products. And they make it sound as if this is a very easy journey. Trust me, it is not an easy journey. It is an intimidating journey, and you need to make this aware across the entire organization through the organization being one cohesive, integrated organization. Our guidelines is to start in small steps and have big wins. There's no use trying to do multiple programs around the organization and getting single 1% wins. Start looking and selecting wins where you can get in excess of double-digit percentage wins, up to 50% and greater wins. Then you're making serious impact while you're having the big picture business strategy and goals in mind while you're looking at the small steps. We will suggest that you start with the proof of value. as opposed to proof of concept. The days of concepts are gone. What is the value, demonstrable value of what you are trying to do? And you should also try this not just in the lab, but in real-time scenarios around customer areas, around some of the invoicing areas, etc. And then validate those goals and on their transformation journey. And then you can accelerate the time to market while you start planning for the next initiative. And of course, it is critical that you get executive sign-off of the proof of value so that you could start motivating for the next proof of value. Now, as we're all aware, there's no doubt that we're living in the age of competition and disruption, and more so complicated by the pandemic that we all experienced both in South Africa and globally. So there is a need for business innovation, looking at your business the way it was in the past, the way it is today, and being flexible enough to the changing behavior and customer patterns. There is a need to mitigate the risks of transforming existing business models. Now, you have all got business models, but how does that business model fit in line with your new business strategy while you're embarking on this digital transformation journey? Last but not least, you have a number of mission-critical legacy applications. These are the core applications that runs your business. So while you are embarking on new technologies, you need to be very careful of the potential risks on those existing applications.
This is the world now. Plugged in, logged on, all the time.
We're in the business of connecting people.
Coding ability.
It's about putting products out there to make people's lives better.
And connect those people to information.
Everything's computerized now.
My phone will link to my tablet, will link to my computer, will link to my car.
Where every single piece of technology you own will be seamlessly linked.
You seen Terminator? People have a deep mistrust of machines.
Times have changed.
In the 70s, remember what that was like? There weren't any computers.
There's only one thing counts in this life. Get them to sign on the line which is dotted. You gotta look at the guy next to you. Look into his eyes. That's a team, gentlemen.
As you all know, first prize is a Cadillac Eldorado. Second prize is a set of steak knives.
Third prize is your fire.
I'm on the eve of a revolution.
This is only the beginning.
It's all waiting at the click of a button.
You see, whoever controls technology controls the world.
Competition breeds innovation.
So I've got the iPhone in my hand. So you've seen the video on the use of technology. I mean, we have now taken our phones as an extension of ourselves. And it's amazing what's going on in terms of interconnectivity between the human element and technology. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Mike Smith. Mike has over 45 years of international and local experience. He's a senior business management systems consultant at Rifle Shot Performance Holdings. Mike is passionate about quality, excellence, and is also been very passionate on business process management and the changing business environment in terms of the new business models and the application of digitalization. Mike has spent some time looking at this digital roadmap, and he has been quite instrumental with the team in what we are launching today and giving you a sneak preview of what we call a step-by-step guide to digital transformation. But Mike also has a personal life. In his spare time, he likes things that are fast, everything that's fast. Fast bikes, fast cars, fast planes. And he tells me he also likes the other gender that is fast. So with that, I introduce you to Mike Smith.
Thank you, Dilly, and hello to everybody. So we're going to be going through a summary of our step-by-step guide to digital transformation. I will do a short introduction, and I'll go into the purpose and the scope of the workbook that we've produced, why we're doing it, and what we hope to achieve by it. I'll go through an overview of the typical content of a section, and giving a few examples of what's actually within each section in the workbook. And then I'll be finishing off with a comment of what do we do once we've completed our workbook. Before I get going on the reason for producing the workbook, I just wanted to reinforce a couple of elements that infuses the whole raison d'etre of digital, or what we call business transformation. As opposed to digital transformation, which could be an activity or an exercise that is performed on a specific activity or task in the organization. For example, one can use robotic process automation as an example of digitalization, but that is specific to an actual activity, usually. Small task that is reproduced repetitively many times. When we talk about business transformation, we're talking about something that transcends purely the operational layer and goes to the very top of an organization and must necessarily embrace the entire business ecosystem. So the workbook is aimed at what we call business transformation, as opposed to what many people call digital transformation. And just about every company has got a different take on what is meant by digital transformation. And I won't go into all the numerous interpretations of that. So to summarize, the workbook is focused on what we refer to as business transformation. And as we go through it, you will see that there are many elements to be considered, possibly a lot more than many organizations will cover when they talk about digital transformation. And Dilly mentioned that the buy-in to holistic digital transformation has to start at the top. So they have to adopt a business transformation mindset. And that mindset has to be communicated and transferred to everybody in the organization. So it starts at the top. There must be a visible commitment by management to business transformation across the whole organization. And that mindset has to be communicated to everybody across the whole organization. Dilly mentioned the importance of being process-centric, no more silos. It's no good having digitalization taking place purely in the silos, purely at the whims of the IT department. We're talking about business management. And after all, if a process cuts across the whole business, involves various stakeholders, then obviously all of those stakeholders must have an involvement in the process. So being process-centric, and Dilly mentioned business process management, it is crucial, it is a foundation to business transformation. The next question is the why. Why do we want to transform the business? Why do we want to become digital? And the number one reason in my mind is to generate value. Dilly touched on it briefly in his introduction. But if digitalization or business transformation is not generating any value, then what's the point? So what do we mean by value? Well, it can mean different things to different people. Some of them are to improve organizational and operational performance and efficiency. I won't go into the how of what we do, but this is the why of why we want to go digital. To reduce the risk and cost of regulatory compliance, combating bribery and corruption, very important. If you have paper-based systems, in trays, out trays, stuff can be chucked in the waste bin, you're opening yourself up to continuing bribery and corruption. By going digital, by making your processes visible and transparent, it helps to combat bribery and corruption. Improving the quality of service and customer satisfaction. Again, a process-centric organization has documented processes. They are strictly controlled. They can be regurgitated time after time after time, so there is consistency in processes, consistency of quality, and hopefully customer satisfaction. Maintaining corporate brand reputation really is a summary of all of the above, but your ability to manage your organization correctly in terms of your strategy, your policies, making sure everybody is on the same page in terms of development, production, manufacturing, service provisioning. At the end of the day, you are boosting your corporate or brand reputation. So what a good reason to go digital. And then we talk about efficiencies, consistency of processes, monitoring processes, improving them, maximizing profitability, sustainability, not just in an environmental sense, but sustainability of the organization. And we want to grow. And creating value for all stakeholders. And I've underlined all stakeholders. This includes not just the directors and the shareholders, but your managers, your staff, your customers, and in terms of your staff, also their families, and at a larger level, the country. So each organization has got its own goals when it comes to what it feels its role in society is. But this is one of the other benefits of digitalization, that we can identify and we can manage and we can improve all of the activities in an organization with regard to what those required values or desired outcomes are in the organization. So I've spent a little bit of time on that, but it's a very important question. And we'll come to that a little bit later. That's one of the features of the workbook, is to get you to think about these things, to get you to make notes of them so that they're not forgotten about when you start your digital journey. So why did we do the workbook? As a result of our previous webinar, a lot of people are asking, well, this is great. You've told us what needs to be done, but how do we actually go about getting started? And forget the waffle and the concepts, as Lily said, give us some practical steps. Can you give us a guide to how we start going about this? So the purpose of the workbook is to help you get started on your digital journey. And implicit in the workbook is a proven path to successful business transformation. We're not reinventing the wheel here. There are plenty of organizations and lots of examples of organizations who've used digitalization successfully and are actually booming as a result, particularly in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. So there cannot be a better example than these organizations in the time of COVID-19 as to how successful their business transformation processes have been. Part of the workbook is also providing a practical platform for you to self-assess, not yourself personally, but your organization, have a look at its resources, the availability of skills. And Dilly mentioned budget as well, very important. One of the elements you have to ask yourself is, do we have a budget for this? So the workbook serves as a guide to giving you or indicating the extent of what a digitalization program can look like, and it can form the basis of budgeting and planning. So you can present your case to the C-suite of what's involved. The other element that Dilly mentioned, also very important, is the change required in the organization, which means changes in the mindset of the people. So it helps to prepare your company for the necessary changes now that you've quantified what some of those changes could be. What we've also included in the workbook is some information on appropriate business transformation tools. There are many in the market there. We've given examples of a few, but you can make, and we ask you within the workbook to watch a video and write down your thoughts on the use of such business tools. And once you've completed your workbook, it provides a platform that enables you to go and have further interaction with the RSPH team in terms of what next, which I'll come to a little bit later. The actual content of the workbook, and I'll go through it briefly here. You can see there are 8 sections there. Business transformation strategy, defining your business model. You have to have a strategy to start with. If you don't have a strategy, you don't have defined goals, you can't plan, you don't know what the outcomes are going to be. So starting with strategy is very important. And Dilly mentioned it, and you can't get away from it. Business processes, it's a given. But you have to rethink your organizational processes. As I said, they have to extend across the entire organization, not just within the silos that have traditionally dealt with what I call mini processes. We will touch on data analytics, pilot projects, reliable assets, and here we're just not talking about plant and equipment, we're talking about IT assets, including software. And we're also talking about, although we're not supposed to call them assets, your human assets, your resources and skills available to actually drive these programs. Change management, as Billy mentioned, and corporate culture. So one can talk about strategy, about goals, about change management, assets, etc. But you have to have a visible corporate culture which needs to be extended to the rest of the organization. And it is top management's job. Okay, they may need some help with some HR or human development skills, but corporate culture is extremely important. And that needs to be developed and maintained alongside your business transformation or as part of your business transformation. And how do we deal with the people? If we don't have the necessary skills, we need to recruit or develop skills of existing people. So that is the content of the workbook. And at the end, getting help with your project and choosing the right partner. So I'll go briefly through the section content. As I said, the workbook contains 8 sections. Each section typically consists of a section header, a short preamble to section content, exercises requiring written input. This is very important. This isn't just read the book and put it on the shelf. We want you to get involved with this. We want you to think about what we're saying. Think about your organization. Where is it in relation to what we're suggesting that you do? And write down your thoughts, right? List the areas that you think need attention. So it is a very interactive tool. We give you an example of an appropriate business tool. The next one will talk about data analytics, for example. So in the section on data analytics, we will suggest an appropriate business tool in how to use data analytics. Also include a link to an educational video, and then a space for questions and comments of what you've just observed, so that hopefully when we get together at some time after you've completed your workbook, you won't have forgotten all the comments and questions that you might have had at the time. So we're talking about 8 major sections, 10 sections in all, and a total of 21 exercises for completion by the student or customer. A total of 25 pages, which is not a lot actually. We could have made it a lot bigger and you would have got bored or not complete it, so we've kept it to the minimum number of pages that we consider presents or translates into the greatest value. As I said, each section contains a section header, so it is very clear and distinct. Each section is nicely delineated, so no confusion of what you're looking at. There's an example of the section preamble. This one we were talking about data analytics, and we offer some suggestions and some observations of why the right kind of data analytics is important. Developing a data analytics strategy is key. Learning how to get value out of the data using real-time analytics, etc. And very important, how to best organize and present data analytics. So people in the organization want to see different things. They're interested in different things in the organization in terms of schedules, performance, etc. So they have different requirements when it comes to the analytics and the way they're going to be presented. So that is just an example of a section preamble. This particular one, and I think it's worth reinforcing, make sure that only useful data is harvested and that its analysis serves a purpose. Otherwise, why are we bothering? Okay, I spoke about examples of business tools. This is the section of analytics, and there's a typical analytics or BI type tool. And we will give you some pointers as to things to have a look at. And where appropriate, we've embedded links to educational videos. So we've made it very easy for you to go out and do some homework or research. This is an example of an exercise. It's clearly titled, and it indicates there exactly what it is we think you should be doing at this point. For example, list the key process stakeholders, what data they would like to monitor, and how they would like it to be presented. It's not sufficient for somebody in the IT department to second guess or to brand their version of what they think the stakeholder wants to see. It means getting up, asking questions, finding out their requirements, and how they would like to have entry into the system. And at the end of each section, comments and questions on the particular business tool that we're proposing. So that's a short summary of the structure and the content of the workbook. Remember, we're talking about business transformation specifically. Further down the line, we'll be presenting workbooks on other topics. And after feedback from yourselves, we will carry forward the same format with some tweaking as and when necessary. So that brings me to the end of my little presentation. But that's the good news. We've covered the why and we've covered the what. But it still begs the question, how do we actually go forward from here? How do we implement this? Where? In what parts of the organization? In what sequence? What priorities? And who needs to be involved? So that is a further discussion. And I'm going to hand back and leave you to the next bit. And thank you all for your patience.
Thank you, Mike, for a taste of the step-by-step guide. I think I'm going to ask you for an autographed copy of that guide. So over to you, Caroline.
Sorry, there was one small thing that I omitted, Dilly. Apologies. What we've just gone through, and even when you've done your workbook, it's fairly straightforward and fairly quick to do. It could take you half an hour or a couple of hours. But in relation to what you have to do after that, we've only put in a bit of effort right at the beginning. The rest of a business transformation program requires a lot of effort, a lot of resources, and the more you put in it in project management, we refer to it as front-end loading, but very basically, we've put in a little bit of effort. You have to put in a lot of effort to actually get the results. And Dilly mentioned, go for the 50%, go for the areas where you can get 50%, not the 1 and 2% wins. So the more effort that you put in, the greater the rewards. Thanks again.
Thanks, Mike. Over to you, Caroline. A simple analogy of a butterfly getting out of the strapped and straddled cocoon. It is my great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Jesse Hogan. Jesse is going to share with you a case study of a company that over several years, 45 years, embarked on a journey. So it's now a beautiful butterfly. Jesse is a senior executive with one of Rifle Shot's partners called Soft Expert, who has been doing digital transformation and business process changes for over 25 years. Jesse hails from Brazil, and he's interacted with very large private and public sector customers across many geographies around the world. Jesse now manages the Europe, Middle East, and Africa operation, and he's joining us this morning from Liverpool. Jesse, I know when you joined us the last time, it was -1 in Liverpool. I'm not sure what the temperature is today. So with that, Jesse, I hand over to you.
Thank you, Dilly. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for your participation. So today, Dilly, the weather is a little bit better. Today you have 3 degrees Celsius, so it's a little bit better. But last week was really good. The weather was like about 12 to 13 degrees Celsius, so it was really, really good. So today's section is related to Comau. So Comau is a big company from the same group of Fiat, Chrysler, and many other big companies on the automotive sectors. So Comau has a really big problem on them. They want to improve their processes and increase the operational efficiency, and they start their journey on the digital transformation, and they have to look at the focus on the main problem. So what they want to achieve, the main objective was to manage their processes, and especially when it comes to process their contracts, because they have more than 50 types of contracts and many business units. And every new contract revision or every new contract has to go to more than 200 different people. And this orchestration was a very difficult thing, because it has to go to legal department, it has to go to commercial department, financial department, engineering department. So you have a process that is very complex and involves a lot of people. And sometimes you have a lead time, and that gets complex. So the way they do things were based on emails and internal communication. They don't have a clear digital service. So they have to rely on email communication, deadlines that are just in spreadsheets. So they handle many of their data on spreadsheets. Spreadsheet is an easy, nice tool, but when it comes to complex processes, it's really painful to manage it using just a spreadsheet, because they normally are located in files in the folder structure or internal network. So it's very difficult to track all the information, all the metadata you need to track regarding a project or regarding a contract you are working on. So that was the main issue. So as Mike said, the first thing they have to go through is process. So the first thing they look at their processes. So they have the big idea of using process, and then after they look at the process, they start to looking for data. So they analyze data and they see how many time they spent in a specific processes, and sometimes what they get a lot of problem with those contracts. So they have a lot of incidents related to contract management, and also there is no connection between some issues they have, like problem they have to solve related to contracts. So in this sense, they went to the market to find a tool to get their problem sorted, and they come to SoftExpert. So why they choose SoftExpert? So what's the advantage of SoftExpert? First thing is low complexity of implementation, because they have a integrated platform. So they don't have to worry about integration issue, because when you go to your transformation, you need to have integration between process, and even if you have the best BPM tool, you need to integrate with the ERM, CRM, and budget systems. So this is a really complex task. So if you have to work through many integration, that can be a very painful thing. So that's why when they look SoftExpert platform with so many components that help them to go to this digital transformation, so that was like, oh, love at first sight. Then another thing is the cost benefit, because as you have this many components in the single platform, when you buy the solution, they have a really good cost benefit relationship. And then is 100% web platform. There's many advantages, but just to mention a few of them. So low complexity of implementation due to the integration between the components, cost and benefit relationship really good, integrated components, and 100% web. So first thing they did, they select a set of components from SoftExpert, and one of them is SE process. So as I said, the main pain they had is like the contract issue with the 200 people need to be orchestrated, and it's crucial to their operation, because if they have a new contract, they have a time to put that contract to be effective. So sometimes they get lost because the contract is on the legal department for approval. They have no traceability. So the first thing, they start to map the process, they identify that main problem, because now they automate many more processes. Maybe they have more than 20 or 30 processes automated, but they have to start with one that is crucial for them. So they start this contract management. And they use SCBPM because it's very easy to map. And when you have this complex interaction between content, people, transaction, and business regulations and policies, so you need a solution that will help you to orchestrate all these. So this is why they start with process, and specifically Soft Expert BPM solution. So then they have the process in place, they start to automate this, and then this is a very crucial thing, because when they see the process, and the process is all about document. So the second thing they put in place is they have to have a robust document management system that allows them to manage the whole life cycle of the content. And there's a very advantage of Soft Expert to have a BPM, that's a process modeling tool, that is natively integrated with document management. So then now they start to control the life cycle of process of contracts, and using the BPM to orchestrate the revision, to control deadlines, to control SLA according to their internal business roles. And then, so that was the second solution they add, or they start parallelly, basically. So they look at process, and they look at the documents that are used on those processes. So this integration allows them to have process that use document, they are controlled by the ECM platform. So integration between process and document is crucial, because process by nature, they consume content, they consume documents. So if you don't have integration, that's going to be a big problem. In the process side, because you don't have, you might be using the outdated version of the contract, because you don't have this integration. Sometimes the contract's under revision, but you don't know. So when you have this integration, you have this clear picture, because the process and document, they are on the same page. So when the people responsible for the process revision, if they start a new revision, people that are using that document, that contract on the process, they can see that that document is under revision. So they are not using the last updated version, they are using the current version, but there will be a new version available. And when they release the new version, automatically the process EU make available the last updated version. So this integration is crucial. So that's the way they start to handle the whole life cycle of not just contracts, but any other document they may have internally. But the contract was the main pain where they started. So create and revision, the knowledge transfers, expiration and validity of contracts is all under control by using this document component. And then after they have the process in place, they have process synchronized with documents, so they have process and document same page. Now they can have visibility of the information, and they want to measure the performance of those processes. So they start to create the performances. So they start to define KPIs for those activities. So when they define KPIs, they start to see a better and clear picture and see where they need to increase the efficiency. And they can pinpoint the deviation of their processes. So they create a big picture of our process, and they define this performance component so they can measure the performance of their internal processes. So by that, they use SCE performance. That is a system that allows you to control and manage and take action over all your organization's KPIs. So the main, they start to connect process with performance. So now this third integration, so document and process, and now process, document, and performance. So now you can pinpoint a specific activity in your process and define KPIs. So measure the performance of that activity, and you have these tool that you can put that in a portal, and you can see in real time what's going on with the specific tasks or specific activities in your process. So you can see what are the activities that are performing well and those they are doing very well. So now you can take action. So by dealing with the deviation, so as you have this visibility of information, and you can look at every process activity and KPIs you have related to those activities, and then when you see a deviation, you can take action. And then when you start to take action, you need again the BPM, because now you have to orchestrate a deviation that might be a problem. So when you see the deviating KPI, you start a non-conformity or a problem investigation related to that deviation. And so you need to have tools available to do the problem investigation. So in this case, SE problem allows you to have electronic forms. So now you get rid of paper. So one of the big benefits they had, they reduced the usage of paper, because now they create electronic forms, and they have a clear picture where they can investigate the problem, where they have like Ishikawa chart, FTA analysis, and many other problem quality tools that help you to go to the root cause of the problem, and you have this full traceability. So I have process in place, I have document synchronized side page, I have my performance measurement, and now I start to deal with my deviations and investigating those deviations using tools for quality proposal, for deviation and problem investigation. And then I can have the traceability, and then I can make the things that doesn't happen, doesn't happen again, or the reoccurrence of the same errors or same problems, so you can deal with them using this SC problem. But the orchestration of the problem is made by the BPM engine. So now you see the business process automation, how it's the engine, is the heart of the system, because it can orchestrate anything, not just a contract. So it can orchestrate between different areas, define deadlines, but also an issue with the problem investigation. And then again, the integration. Now I have my process mapped, I have process integrated with performance, I have deviation, I have documents, and I want to assess the risk I have in the specific activities. So this integration between risk management and BPM allows me to go to a specific process and pinpoint activities and look for risk, identify risk on those activities. And so I can do risk assessment integrated with process management in a very holistic way, because I have process integrated with risk integrated with performance, and problem investigation in the same platform. So I don't have silos. I have a single version of the truth. This is the system can hold all the information, and it can do data analysis of all this information. So next, I have risk assessment and action plans. So when you have a deviation or a contract issue or a problem issue, sometimes you need to, besides of the orchestration of the problem itself, you need to take actions. So meanwhile, you are dealing with the whole problem, but in the middle of the investigation, you have sometimes, or you must start action plans. So the system allows them, in this case, to define action plans, define the responsible, define deadlines, and monitor and track the actions you define in the action plans in real time. So what are the results? So Kamal increased his operational efficiency and reduced the risk of failure by 60%. I'm not mentioning reducing of paper usage, better quality on the better KPIs and quality control, better customer satisfaction, and many other. But just this one of the most clear picture they have was like 60% of the risk failure was reduced by using Soft Expert. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy this success case.
Thank you, Jesse, for an excellent example of the use of digitalization. I just want to now summarize what has been shared by our speakers. So some of the success guidelines, to reiterate: you need senior executive sponsorship, you need to define your digital roadmap, have a change management plan. We cannot underestimate the need for cross-functional collaboration, iterate quickly, invest in people, upskill, bring in new people, of course, increase in cyber crime security. And last but not least is build up partnerships with trusted resultants, as we say. So what next? Why is it critical to choose the right partner? Firstly, we know most of your internal teams have a day job and they get seconded to move on to a team with digitalization. So it's important to have the right partner who can complement your internal team. And this partner needs firstly to understand business. And secondly, every industry sector is slightly different. So this partner must also know that the mining sector has got certain unique nuances to the financial services sector, and must have people and change management experience, understand technology, have technology experience and cross-functional experience. Also, companies as they grow have huge challenges. So understanding how to work and collaborate within large organizations, and managing the key stakeholders, having steering committees with the key stakeholders, and last but not least, having an effective and efficient project office looking at the program and project management. So you need people with that kind of capability as a partner. So with that, Caroline.
The Golden Labrador, unique amongst canine breeds because it has the ability to act as a seeing eye for the visually disabled, a task no animal was capable of. That is, until now. Thanks to modern training techniques here at the Animal Psychology Unit in Barnstead, the world of the visually disabled has become that much more assured since the introduction of the guide cat. Trained to a very high standard, the guide cat will lead its master along safely, making a wide detour of natural hazards. The guide cat is ever aware that its first duty is the care and safety of its master. The guide cat is also trained to remain poised and calm, whatever the crisis. It even knows where to stop and wait for a number 53 bus. He can also calculate distances and always chooses the most desirable route home. And that busy highways can be a danger to life and limb. Until at last, it guides its thankful master back to the security and comfort of his own home.
So you have a choice that you choose a highly trained and experienced Labrador or a guide cat. I'm very fortunate. I've had experience with my lady Zara, who's a Labrador for over 16 years, and I can vouch for a Labrador. So what's the call for actions? For those of you on the call today, there is a step-by-step digital guide that Mike has shared with you. So to qualify to receive a copy of the step-by-step guide, you need to book an appointment with Caroline, and Caroline will facilitate that with the Medalla Rifle Shot team. So we started off by talking about the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And hopefully we've shared with you through the presentations with Mike and the success story that Jesse shared with you, that it is something that you need to plan with and make sure that the single step that you take takes you on the light path towards both business and digital transformation. So you have a choice in terms of selecting the tried and trusted Labrador with Medalla Rifle Shot as your business and digital transformation partner. So with that, Caroline, I know we've been running some polls, and if there's any questions, we can take them now.
Thank you, Dilly. There are no questions at this stage.
Okay. I looked at the polls, and it's quite encouraging that almost most of you that are in attendance today have embarked on some digital transformation journey. So that's very encouraging. And I guess, Caroline, with that, that brings us to the end of our webinar this morning.
Thank you very much. That was extremely insightful. I hope that all of you found the content useful. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to pop us an email and we will answer them individually. Thanks to all our speakers. Thank you to all our guests for your time.
Thank you and bye-bye.